Okay. Hello, everyone. We're the Public Policy Cluster in collaboration with the Gender and Society Cluster that fall under Nickel and Dimed. Nickel and Dimed is the official research platform for the Center of New Economic Studies. Welcome to our monthly roundtable. The purpose of this roundtable is to discuss the rights of transgender persons from an Indian lens, which is to the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019, and ponder upon whether the act promotes heteronormative, casteist, and patriarchal ideologies. So, to ease into the discussion and set a base, let's begin with the executive and judicial history before the formation of the Transgender Persons Act. Yes, Shashank.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditi. So, honestly speaking, we didn't have a very specific legislation that recognized the rights of the trans people. However, in 2014, we did have the National Legal Services Authority, which said that trans people, they have the rights to self-identification of their gender, and they have the legal provision for identifying themselves as the third gender. And more importantly, their rights will be safeguarded as per the Constitution. The most significant aspect of that of the verdict that was given by the Supreme Court was that the sexual orientation and gender identity is a person's personality. It cannot be forced into any procedures like the SRS, and it's very important for the person's dignity as well, and it promised them equal rights and opportunities. But that so far we have gotten really as far as recognizing their rights. Apart from that, there haven't been much progress before the Trans People Act that we're talking about.
All right, Soumya.
Yeah, so if I look at the historic decision, then in 2018, there was this decision upholding the privacy and non-discrimination of the LGBT persons. So the Supreme Court struck down the sodomy law, a British relic of the colonial law, which said that it used to punish the carnal intercourse against the order of nature with 10 years to life in prison. So basically, it criminalized consensual same-sex relations. However, the government's law came in to protect the rights of the transgender people, and it provided them full right to engage in sexual relationships with any orientation that they prefer.
Is there anybody else who would like to add anything else to this? Okay. I think so we can safely move on to the next question, which is, do you believe mere acceptance of non-normative forms of family is sufficient, or is there a need for the legal definition of family to be included of these non-normative forms? Who would like to take the floor for this? Shashank, yes.
Mere acceptance is necessary towards towards creating a more inclusive society and more an equitable society, but that's only necessary, I would say. Oh, wait, am I getting stuck? Okay, I'm back again. Okay, cool. Sorry. Mere acceptance is necessary aspect, I would say, but it's not really sufficient. You need legal recognition of the non-normative forms of families as well, so that they have proper protection and you have some kind of benefit that's been given as well, access to healthcare or I'm sorry.
Personal life, sir.
Shreya, could you? Yeah, thank you. Access to healthcare and family benefits and social schemes. They're also they only follow once you have a legal protection there as well. So while as I said again, while mere acceptance is necessary, it's not really sufficient.
Yes, Soumya.
Actually, I do agree with Shashank that it is not sufficient, and there have been anecdotes and cases in the past which say that it's not just about acceptance, it is also about the awareness of those within the family. So for example, it is very important for us to realize that as new and as different this talking about this sounds to some people in the family, it is also about the limited knowledge and awareness they have of how you select your sexual orientation. So for a lot of people, it is limited to the idea of basically the physical body, and it is also about the idea of how they recognize it. So it is important that we make the family aware first of how and to what extent does this choice of your sexual orientation extend, and then comes the acceptance. So first they should understand that this is not related to your physical body, and then things would be a better and a more
Thank you so much, Soumya. In fact, when you talk about awareness, we will be taking this up later in the discussion. For now, Adya.
Yeah, hi. The people before me have covered points really well, but yeah, of course, I think the legal definition of not just the family, but a lot of other things need to be changed. Like like last year, there was a case where the legal definition of bride was challenged because a trans woman's marriage was the people in the temple were refusing to recognize it because the legal definition of bride can only be a woman on the day of her wedding. So a lot of things like these need to be made more inclusive to fully integrate trans people into our legal framework.
Yeah. Shivalika.
Yeah, I think adding on to the legislative aspect of this, so if we look at the legislation, say take the Hindu Marriage Act, so then this section specifically call a bride as the dictionary meaning of the as a female bride. So there is still a need to expand this definition of family to include, more families that extend beyond blood relations and who are considered a part of family unit according to their cultural and social practices so that they can afford legal protection and support which can extend further to their inheritance right, property rights and welfare schemes.
Thank you so much, Shivalika. So now, coming to the heart of the discussion, do you think that the Act propagates heteronormative, casteist, and patriarchal ideologies? Yes, Adya.
Uh, like identity certificate from a district magistrate for a person to qualify as a trans person. And this identity will only be either in the binary of a male or a female. And secondly, the casteist angle comes in because even after the certificate is obtained, the person's name can only be changed to the extent of the name and not the surname. Because in India, I think the surname is a big marker of a person's caste, and it's important for the legal system in this. Like it seems like it's important for the legal system to keep perpetuating this caste system. So yeah, I think a lot of clauses in the act are very heteronormative and caste.
Thank you, Adya. Soumya.
Yeah, so when I first read this question, it reminded me of one poem that Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi had written, and this poem talks very explicitly about the Act of 2019 and how it propagates the heteronormative, casteist, and patriarchal ideologies. So in the poem, she states, and I quote, that the billet says we are backward classes, but of a third gender, it doesn't speak a word. So basically, what happens in this act is that they put the transgenders' rights in line with those of the socially backward, socially and economically backward. How this plays into the picture is that this reinforces the idea of them being inferior to the rest of the community and to the cisgender community, and thus reinforcing the patriarchal and the casteist ideologies. The poem also says that people are free to change their gender, but it gives an option of just two genders. So this emphasizes how the act does not recognize any other identity than that of a male or a female, thus promoting the idea that there are only two genders, and it reinforces the heteronormative ideology.
Thank you for bringing a bit of literature into the legal jargon bit of it, Shivalika.
Yeah. So, adding on to like what everyone has said, there's this one provision in the Act, if we see, where it says that the transgender person has to undergo a gender reassignment surgery to change their identity. Now, this is the problem now, because it's again reinforcing the idea of the patriarchal idea, because not everyone can afford to undergo such surgeries, and they're again determined by their anatomy and not by their identity. And further, if we look back at the history of this act, then there were a lot of questions raised against this act, because there was limited or little to no consultation with the stakeholders who were being affected by this act. And there's even now there isn't enough protection for transgender persons from violence and discrimination. So it leaves them vulnerable to physical, sexual, and emotional abuse.
Thank you, Shivalika. Sashank, do you have anything to add?
Just want to add a little bit to Adya's point as well, wherein she said about the casteist form of it, and how while changing the names in the certificates, it's causing a lot of difficulties in that. If you were to actually think about it, the entire act tries to tell you that you need to show that you are a transgender to get the necessary benefits and whatever provisions that the state is offering to you. And if you were to think about it, it completely ignores the intersection of caste and marginalization here. It might be very easy for a South Delhi person. I don't know if I'm again flickering. I'm sorry for the internet. It might be very easy for a Delhi person, a South Delhi person, to come out and tell that I am trans, but it might not be very easy for a marginalized Dalit to say the same thing aloud, because they have such different socio-economic conditions, and that plays into it. But however, this ad completely ignores that. And as Shivalika said, when you have to produce such proofs, it might be easier for that guy, but not for this guy. And that is where the casteist aspect is completely brushed apart and brushed under the carpet. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if I flickered in here and there. Terrible internet.
Sashank. Yeah, it was a bit flickery, but you brought a great point to the table that how coming out can be very different from two people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And yeah, Soumya, is there anything that you'd like?
Yeah, so as Shashank said, that it is very important to see how the two interplay actually affect the redressal mechanism. I can also think of cases where people have come out and fought for their rights, but the idea of affluence does come into picture then, because me being from a marginalized and socially economic backward community would actually have a little awareness about the redressal mechanisms, and b, I do not have the tools at my so I do not have the tools and instruments to go and access my rights. So then making provisions for that is also
So like Sean has been talking about awareness and tools, and that is exactly what we're coming to now. What are realistic and implementable solutions in today's day and age that would make India safer for trans? Anybody who'd like to take the floor? Yes, Adya.
Yeah, I think it's more the same, just, and it becomes, so that it's not easy to translate it to inhabit this country itself. The act does say that there's no need for discrimination, like there's no tolerance for discrimination against trans people in employment and education, but it doesn't provide for any reservation. So I think some form of affirmative action for trans people in places of employment and education would be a great and practical move which could improve their condition a lot.
I wasn't able to catch that, but thank you, Adya. Soumya.
As far as I was able to catch, I think Adya was talking about the inclusion for employment and education. And my point follows to that because I think that when you talk about something like giving them a safe place, it is also important that when they are included, that inclusion does not lead them to feeling more inferior than they felt when they were excluded. And this would require an emphasis on training, especially teachers, to help them adopt inclusive teaching methods to ensure that when they enter an institution, they are not harassed or discriminated against by other staff or other children. So something like so basically, I mean to say that there should be a mechanism that facilitates this provision and makes it easier for them mainstream. And also to boot, I think there is a lot of ambiguity that exists even with the rights that they have. For example, the act is silent about whether a trans person who holds a male or a female gender certificate will have access to the government welfare schemes and programs meant for the transgender people. So I think there is also a need for greater clarity on how things will be implemented. And the last idea that I think could work very well would be that to know what is happening at the decentralized place of where people are coming from. The idea of having like a transgender welfare board where they establish and ensure the rights of the others because they come from a place where they understand what is the utmost important idea to be implemented. So I think something like a welfare board to ensure more inclusive and safe community would be a
Those are very good options. And just connecting back to your first one, I think there is an inherent inferiority complex with regards to people, especially transgender, that would come from lower socio economic backgrounds. So they feel excluded just because of the inherent inferiority complex that they have. Uh, so that also needs to be sort of taken care of. Yes, Shivank.
Yeah, I think I agree with all the points that were raised by Adya and Soumya. And like in conclusion, I would say that sensitization and awareness programs at all levels of the society, workplaces and educational institutions, because these are like the fundamentals from where you start, can really help to promote an understanding of transgender issues and, sensitize people towards the struggle that they go through. And it can also help us in building a community support network for transgender individuals and creating a safe space.
Thank you, Shivarika. I understand that each one of us is creating a safe space, which is a very, very important part of making transgender persons feel safe. And if there's anybody who has anything to add to this, please let me know. Okay. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining into this discussion. And yeah.